And one of the biggest questions that caused this big commission fiasco is, what did my agent do other than open the door for me? Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Jamerson, coming to you from Ashley Lambert Realty. And as you can tell by the title, I'm pretty sure you're here because you want to hear what I have to say about the latest 6% commission headlines that we have all seen. The news broke on Friday morning when I really wasn't paying attention because we were packing up for a weekend in the mountains. We had a lot of fun, but this situation has been on my mind a lot. I have seen some pros, some cons. I do want to talk about it, provide my insight, and talk about all of the changes that I have seen in real estate since becoming a licensed real estate agent in 2006. So let's chat about it. First and foremost, let's talk about some of the big changes that I have seen in real estate, the real estate industry since 2006. The first thing I want to talk about is the offer to purchase. When I got into real estate in 2006, the offer to purchase used to be 5 pages. It boiled down to, do you want the house or not? Are we going to use option 1 or option 2 to get there? But it was 5 pages. Now we are sitting at 17 pages, plus all the addendums and things like that. But it is 17 pages, and I'm always like, goodness gracious. The contract has increased by at least 1 paragraph every year, and it's just always been interesting. Now, these changes didn't happen overnight, obviously. One of the most intriguing changes that was made initially was the removal of option 1 and 2 and how the verbiage was worked to basically make it option 2. I always use option 2. That was a big change that happened right off the bat, right when I first got into real estate. I'm not sure if you know this, but e-signatures were not allowed. So I remember having to sit by the fax machine in the office and wait for the lovely 5 pages to come through the fax machine, hope that someone else wasn't using it, hoping that somebody else's offer wasn't coming in, and then hoping that all the signatures were legible. And that was always a headache. So e-signatures were not allowed. Obviously, e-signatures is a huge part of every single transaction in real estate. That was a huge change. A lot of people had to get used to that. I personally love it. I had eFax until earlier this year. Now we all use email. I rarely ever have to send or receive a fax. But those are changes that we had to deal with. I always look at being a new agent during the recession as a blessing because I was able to learn a lot on the ground doing business every day. And I saw a lot of craziness, obviously, but a lot of the foreclosures that were flooding the market were caused by adjustable rate mortgages, balloon payment mortgages, interest-only mortgages, things that we commonly refer to now as subprime loans. Now, these subprime loans did not have mortgage insurance attached to them. Even though mortgage insurance has been around since the late 30s, they didn't require the mortgage insurance because they were issued by private issuers or private banks, and they were packaged in a way that it was not a requirement. This caused a mess for sellers who wanted to buy. We were in a huge buyer's market. I remember writing the most loaded offers, like things that would make me cringe right now in today's market. But I remember writing offers where we offered tax value. So just think about it. Like if there's like a house that's $750,000 today and it's listed at $750,000, buyers would say, well, what did the seller pay for the house back when they bought it? I'm not paying more than that. Or what's the tax value of the house? I'm not paying more than that. Like it was crazy, but people were offering offers that low. So $750,000 house, the tax value is $600,000. There goes all your equity that you worked so hard for over the past however many years, but you need to sell. So tax value offers, we had loaded offers where we would ask for closing costs being paid by the seller on top of the lower purchase price. We would also ask for all of the things to be fixed that's wrong with the house, basically make it as new as possible or give us a credit for that. And unfortunately, a lot of sellers ended up coming to the table with money, like not making any money or making a couple $1,000s. The market was crazy. That wasn't, I mean, obviously it wasn't every seller, it wasn't every buyer, it wasn't every contract, but it was common for sellers to have to bring money to closing, sellers and builders. After all of that happened, there was a reintroduction of the mandatory mortgage insurance. And that was a huge thing to chew on for a lot of buyers, because before this, we had the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, major mortgage payment, but then we had to add the mortgage insurance. And even though it was there to lower the risk of the bank for making the loan to you, it did make your mortgage higher. So that's something that we had to look at, because it was a mandatory part of the mortgage until you had 20% equity in the home. A lot of people didn't like that, and that did change things around. So that was a blow to the market, a blow to the industry that we had to change, conform, and adjust to. Then in 2012, there came a push for more disclosure in the everyday real estate transaction. And this may blow some of your minds who recently entered the market as a real estate agent. But under the Real Estate Settlement Act, Regulation X, and the Truth in Lending Act, which was Regulation Z, it required lenders to provide true loan estimates to their clients within 3 days of a full loan application. I know a lot of people are like, hold on, did people used to apply for a loan and not know all of the gray areas, all of the fine print? Yes, because the good faith estimate, which was the norm at the time, didn't go into full disclosure. You couldn't shop around for a good loan looking at apples to oranges in like the same or similar format. I know that when I send my buyers to go get an approval letter, some of them do it lovingly, expeditiously, they get it done, right? Other ones give me pushback and they say, well, why do you need this approval letter? And then why do you send me back to the lender to get this loan estimate? Is this not enough? And I'm like, well, how much is your mortgage? How much is your down payment? How much is your interest rate? What are the fees that the lender is charging you? All these things were not always a part of the good faith estimate. So when these regulations came around, we all knew this, and the agents, good, seasoned, awesome agents like myself, were able to guide the buyers through the process and help them compare loan products and loan estimates and lenders and offerings to make sure they were getting the best deal possible. I'm thankful for those regulations, but when they were implemented or rolled out, it was a nightmare for a lot of people. Lenders were required to disclose all this information within 3 days, so many of them possibly didn't have a working routine on how to get that out in a timely manner. So that had to be created. Then the HUD-1 form was replaced with a closing disclosure. And again, newer agents will be like, what in the world? Like, I've seen HUDs, yeah, cash offers or cash deals and transactions, it's still around. But the closing disclosure is new. And we now have to have this closing disclosure acknowledged by the buyer. Go figure, 3 days before closing. Can you imagine as a buyer not knowing your true cash to close until the morning of closing and having to wire and then bring proof of the wire or even bring a check to closing? Can you imagine as a seller not knowing your true net until the day of closing? It was a little bit of the wild, wild west. So these regulations to me were welcomed, but a big change occurred. Buyers had to work with realtors. They had to explain things a little bit more in detail. Having guidance from lenders and real estate attorneys. Real estate attorneys and lenders had to work more closely together to get these balance sheets balanced 3 days before closing, opening everyone up to questions and comments and concerns, and making sure the numbers are right instead of doing that at the closing table, which was awkward at times. So it was a change that really stressed out a lot of people. It stressed out the way we did things until it was no longer a stressor, until it was normal everyday activities in the real estate industry. Now, there were a few other things that happened between like 2012, but the biggest thing that happened after 2012 was obviously COVID-19, and no one knew what in the world was going to happen around like the immediate time around the great awakening of COVID or right after COVID. Like no one knew the impact, the psychological impact of buyers and sellers during COVID and after COVID. And like we're still dealing with those effects to today. And a lot of things have changed in the market, and I saw a lot of stuff that little scared me a little bit. But COVID was a huge thing that no one knew if there was going to be a crash, if there was going to be a great dump of properties from sellers and from builders, if they were going to just have a yard sale basically and just slash things. People were waiting on the fence, and they were like, I'm going to wait until everything is like drop bottom, the lowest possible. And I saw some great interest rates, and those interest rates aren't going to come back. I saw some great prices. I don't think a lot of those prices are going to come back. So that in itself is a new norm that we are still working through. But if you remember, interest rates plummeted, not the prices. There were wait lists, VIP lists, multiple offers, highest and best by 3 o'clock when the house became active at 2. Like, what in the world? There were agents writing sight unseen offers. Now, when we think of sight unseen offers, like as a consumer, you think, well, the buyer didn't see the property. I was in some transactions as a listing agent where the buyer's agent didn't even come see the property. Like no one saw the property. They didn't do the tiptoe around the yard and like do the whole peekaroo. No one saw the property, but yet these agents were out here writing offers for big coins, big money, not explaining things to people. A lot of people didn't know what they were signing. They were just signing it because they wanted the house. A lot of them were exhausted. They were done with competing. They just wanted to get it done. Like a lot of agents did that. A lot of agents advised their clients to forego inspections. And we've heard the horror stories after that. Like they moved into this house that was lipstick on a pig, and then it started to oink in the middle of the night. A lot of things happened. A lot of things happened. A lot of people's money was just out there dangling. Even though people look back at COVID and say that the interest rates were great and the prices were great, a lot of the prices that we saw, the actual closing price, was just driven up by demand. Okay, so now we're at a level where people are not demanding as much, but people are becoming more awakened. I don't want to say woke, but more awakened to what happened, and they're asking questions. And one of the biggest questions that caused this big commission fiasco is, what did my agent do other than open the door for me? Okay, a lot of agents had to look in the mirror and say, well, what did I do? Like, what in the world did I do for the past 2 years? Or I'm a new agent and I sold all these houses, but am I smarter for it? Let's see, last but not least, a lot of first-time home buyers were actually squeezed out of the market because they either had an agent who was simply unwilling to write offers sight unseen, who were unwilling to advise buyers to waive inspections and waive appraisals, and had agents like myself who refused to really be lazy in the process and not represent their clients the way they would want themselves to be represented if they were a first-time home buyer. So inevitably those homes still had to be sold, and they were purchased by big banks and big rental companies. And now we have an even greater affordability issue because where are they going to move to, right? Those were things that everyone saw. Like if you were not a real estate agent, if you were a consumer, those are things that I believe everyone saw. But things that I saw and other seasoned agents saw was a little bit different. What we saw were people who were entering the market and honestly had no place in the market. Like they should not have been real estate agents. A lot of people refer to them as golden blank fillers, like filling in blanks on an actual contract. We call them glorified door openers. And they simply did not know what the heck they were doing. You would not believe some of the questions that I heard from people who were recently licensed, and I just look at them like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, it's not legal, right? So a lot of situations like that. And then when seasoned agents tried to advise them, they did not want to hear it. They didn't want to be mentored, taught, walked through. Even some firms had like a mentorship fee. So if they asked another agent questions, that agent could charge them for their advice. When back in the day, I remember I was able to ask anyone when I worked in an actual office. I was able to ask anyone questions about something like, hey, what does this mean? And I would actually listen to them and make sure that I was doing the best job possible. I already mentioned this, but there were real estate agents who were writing offers for homes that they never saw, that their client never saw, and they had their due diligence money out there and couldn't see the house until the due diligence money was deposited. And like, my question is always, well, all the material facts, all the things you were supposed to know about the property. When you walk through the property and your client is oohing and ahhing, like, and you're oohing and ahhing with them, how are you doing that? Like, how are you representing them if you haven't seen the property? So I saw a ton of that. Buyers and sellers not being educated on the process is probably what caused all this commission talk anyway. The roles and duties, responsibilities of a listing agent and a buyer's agent, they often overlap, but they also have like things that they drastically do different. But you have to remember, the listing agent represents the seller and the buyer's agent represents the buyer. It was not educated as to like, well, what do you do specifically? So again, this is where all the commission questions come from. I think my biggest pet peeve that I saw was people who put homes under contract with a buyer who is buying and building new construction. Pet peeve of mine is when they don't show up. And when they do show up is at time of contract to make sure that they sign the paperwork to get paid. And then at closing to confirm that they're getting paid. They may answer questions from their clients like here and there, but they're not showing up the way I would want someone to show up for me if I was buying, new construction. And it became such a big issue that builders noticed it. And what did builders do? They stopped giving a percent commission. Some of them, not all of them. They started lowering that amount, or they started giving a flat rate amount. And in my opinion, take it or leave it, my opinion is that a lot of people deserved and earned that lower amount, while others who went over and beyond and continued providing great service continued to be worth more. If you are in fact a real estate agent who just shows up twice, you should not be angry when the builder lowers your commission earned to like $1,500. You should not be mad at all. Like, you showed up twice, that's 2 trips there, you shouldn't be mad. But if you're a real estate agent like myself who shows up for obviously the contract, but before the contract, I walk the lots, I meet with the builder with them, review the contract, go to the contract meeting, go to the design center meeting, review the documents after the design center, view the home from ground until completion every 7 to 10 days, provide my feedback to the buyers, provide my feedback to the builder or construction manager if necessary, attend the pre-drywall meeting, get the pre-drywall inspector out there, review the pre-drywall inspection, review the pre-drywall inspection with the construction manager, follow up to make sure those repairs are done, continue visiting the property, do a final walkthrough, a final inspection, and then actually go to closing. That's a lot spread out over a 6 to 8 month period. So I earned my commission. So what do I think of the news from Friday? I saw the writing in the wall. And it honestly did not affect me and the way that I do my business, because I am a licensed North Carolina real estate agent, and all North Carolina real estate agents have access to the 3 golden forms, which is a working with real estate agents, a buyer agency agreement, exclusive listing agreement. We also have a confirmation of agency when things are a little bit shaky. So it really didn't affect me. I think that it's going to affect me when these forms are changed a little bit, and I'm going to show you what the current verbiage is for North Carolina buyer agency agreement. I'm going to show you that. I didn't get too stressed out about it because I knew there were agents out there who didn't go over the buyer agency agreement. I knew there were agents out there who were glorified door openers. I knew there were agents who did not show property and gave the codes out to people and were just filling in an offer. I knew there were agents who didn't know the craft and the skill, like they didn't have knowledge of the field to actually be true professionals. Like I knew it, and that number has increased over the years. And the hard work that we as good agents put in has been tainted by a lot of the activities and attitudes of these newer agents. Not all new agents are bad. I was a new agent once, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay, so back to the news. One thing that I want consumers to know and to remember, like on the forefront of their brain, is that the National Association of Realtors was sued. National, so all 50 states. Every single state has their own forms. There's no unifying verbiage anywhere. We have our own real estate laws, we have our own forms, we have our own licensing process. Everything is different. And I'm getting different, numbers here and there, but anywhere between 12 and 16 of the 50 states did not have a written buyer agency agreement. So when they depended on the seller to pay their commission, this is very much not the case for North Carolina, which is the only state that I'm licensed in, so I can't speak for other states. But the state of North Carolina has always had a written buyer's agency agreement since I've known of being an agent, and that's since 2006. We've always had it, okay? So let me show you what the current, because it's going to change before July. I know it is. A lot of changes need to be made with the verbiage and how things are done. But currently, what we have is what we've had pretty much since 2006. A line or two may have changed, but it's been the same. So I'm looking at paragraph 4 only. This is one paragraph of 7 pages, again, of the current North Carolina buyer agency agreement that every agent in North Carolina should get signed by their clients and that they should review with their clients before showing property. So paragraph 4, compensation of firm. The agent themselves is not getting paid, it's the firm. So the firm decides what the commission is, and then their agents go out and get that fee. So the very first line is firm. It's not Ashley Jamerson. The firm is Ashley Lambert Realty, and the firm sets the standard for their company. So line A, firm acknowledges receipt of a non-refundable retainer in the amount of blank, which shall or shall not be credited toward any compensation due firm under this agreement. Now, I want you to think, if you recently purchased a home, did your buyer's agent charge you a non-refundable retainer? The answer is more than likely no. Will that change in the future? Will an agent collect a retainer fee for their time? That might be something that buyers will have to keep an eye on. I feel that retainers will become a thing. I don't know what form, but I do think that retainers are going to become a norm in the buyer agency realm of real estate. Line B, buyer agrees that firm's fee for services hereunder shall be in the amount of, if you notice it's blank, that is the fee. The agent or the firm that the agent works for can insert a dollar amount of a percentage of the purchase price or other method of determining firm's compensation for each type of property. So other forms, is this going to be an itemized list, like 5 houses shown for $500? Is this going to be a doc prep fee? What is this going to be? What is this going to look like? Or what can it look like? Are you opening up the wild, wild west with this? So the types of property, resale, those are the existing homes. The listing agent did not explain the documents to the seller of some property in some state, didn't explain the commission split. It was a resale property. It was not new construction. It wasn't land. It wasn't a for sale by owner or unrepresented seller. It was a resale. So how will your commission be earned in all of these different types? You cannot enter NA or zero. Now, I had an agent tell me that she was mad at her company because she didn't understand why they were withholding her commission. Just like a side note story. And it was because the firm received her buyer agency agreement and it said zero. So she basically, per the document, worked for free, but still received a commission based upon the closing that she showed up to. And she had to go back and get this initialed and changed and things like that from her client who just closed on a new home and was like, I never saw this form. What in the world? Like, do I owe you any money? She's like, no. So anyway, again, a lot of agents don't understand what they're filling out, what they're sending out for the signature, but I'm going to digress, okay? The next section says, firm shall seek the fee from a cooperating listing firm through the listing firm's offer of compensation in MLS or otherwise. So I know for sure that the verbiage mentioning an MLS will be removed. Like, I know for sure that's part of the settlement. Not sure what that's going to look like, but that is a portion that will be modified. But the part that I want to point out is that the firm shall seek the fee from the cooperating listing firm. Okay, was this pointed out to people's buyers? The next part is the longest part of this whole paragraph. It says, if buyer purchases a property where the compensation offered by the listing firm and or seller is less than the fee mentioned above on line B, then the buyer is basically responsible for the difference if allowable by law. If the law allows it. Did you know, or did your agent know, or did your past client know that if this fee wasn't met, that they were responsible for it? And then did they further know that if they were a veteran purchasing with the VA loan, that no brokerage fee or commission paid by the buyer is allowed? The only way that a buyer's agent can get paid in a VA transaction is if the money comes from the listing side. So this whole paragraph has to be changed as written in the state of North Carolina. What is this going to look like? I'm not sure. I do know that the North Carolina Real Estate Commission and the attorneys that work within it are speaking with Freddie and Fannie Mac to figure out how this will be possibly rolled into a buyer's loan and how that will affect their affordability and all that good stuff like that. It's still up in the air. We have like 3 or 4 months to figure it out. In addition to the compensation that was noted in section B, the buyer knows that the buyer's agent may receive additional compensation, incentives, bonuses, rebates, and or other valuable consideration. A lot of things have been given by builders and by sellers to incentivize buyer's agents for banging the buyers. That should not determine whether or not a buyer's agent shows a property at all. And you're like, why? It's because this compensation, this agreement, this buyer agency agreement was already entered into prior to showing property, and the buyer's agent's responsibility is to talk about all the properties they want to see. What's the compensation associated with that? And then help the buyer determine whether or not they want to see the property, because if the commission offered by the listing was lower than the buyer agency agreement, then they are responsible for that. So these are tough conversations. These are awkward conversations because you're talking about money, and people didn't have these awkward conversations, but as a professional, we were supposed to have these conversations. Some people didn't, and that's why we are in the hot water that we are in now. As a broker in charge, owner of my firm, awesome real estate agent, I can be honest with you, my commission has fluctuated for buyers and for seller transactions. I do set my commission at a certain amount, but I have changed that. Let's see, if they are selling a property with me and buying a property, I have the ability to have that amount fluctuate, and it's stated in writing. It's stated in writing. I'm good with it. I have the ability to change that amount because I own the firm. How will this affect people who work for larger firms is one of the things that I have thought about since this news came out on Friday. Every state forcing real estate agents to have the tough conversations regarding their commission and to show their worth is welcome to me. I honestly love the idea. I, like other seasoned real estate agents, feel like this decision is going to push mediocre real estate agents out of the real estate field, and top brokers like myself will appreciate a more professional real estate field in general. Realtors are an important part of the real estate buying and selling process. They have been, I believe they always will be, an important part of the process. However, there is no longer room for blank fillers and glorified door openers and bag chasers in the market. Like, I'm ready to see them go. Just like all the changes I have been through since 2006 in the real estate industry, this one will come and we will see what we need to do as professionals. We will do it, continue to do it if we are already doing it. And myself, I will continue to be a great real estate agent to my buyers and sellers moving forward. I am not going to let this news put a damper on the great services that I provide my clients. I hope this video finds you all well. And if you found this information helpful, definitely like, share, and subscribe. Add your comments and questions below. I'm pretty sure a few of you will have positive and or negative things to say. I'm very interested in opening up the conversation. But until later, guys, thank you so much for watching and talk to you soon. Bye.
She's got the knowledge, she's got the flair. Ashley the realtor, she's always there. She'll find you a home, she'll make it grand.